Good evening, Buffaloes fans, and welcome to episode 11 of the Buffaloes podcast here on G Show Productions, brought to you by Midcanton Fasters and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Pardon me here, everybody. A bit bloated right now. I'm not too sure why. I mean, I did just eat a few pieces of pizza before I started this. Maybe that's affecting me a bit weirdly, but yeah. There's been, in terms of effect, using that word, there's been a positive effect throughout, this hockey academy as this year has been going along. The positivity has been great to see from every single team and everybody I've talked to so far. And yeah, that's always enthusiastic, is Gordy Tummelson, who's going to be joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast coming up next to talk about the past weekend of games for all four teams in the academy, as well as talking about an upcoming weekend of games for all teams in the academy as well. So should be a lot of fun with Gordy Tummelson, the ex-Winnipeg Jets 1.0 WHA goaltender, joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast as the only guest for this week, brought to you by his brand and goaltenders Terrico, Midcanton Fasters and Tools, as well as Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Gordy Tomlinson joining the show next. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Gordy Tummelson joining his weekly segment here on the Buffaloes podcast to break down the past weekend of games for the teams in the academy, as well as maybe also previewing some of the games coming up this week for this podcast episode specifically. Gordy, how you doing first off? I know that, the snow is falling here. Pilot Mound, has been making some noise still. And yeah, some exciting things in terms of the goalie meeting that happened last night. How are things?
Well, the first of all, we went 4-4-1 on the weekend, although they have that overtime loss, but I always call that a tie. So it's 4-4-1 on the weekend against good competition in Western Canada. We had kids in Penticton, Calgary, Wilcox, Saskatchewan, and in and Pilot Mound. So yeah, good weekend and positive weekend. Yeah, and it was a very snowy and blowy, and we got guys to BC. I don't know how they got there. I mean, I just don't know how they do these things, but the bus drivers are amazing and they get there safe. So good for them. I'm thrilled because the bus accidents aren't fun.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully everybody out there that's been doing some traveling is gone to their destination safe. And thank you for tuning into this one, everybody, by the way. But yeah, you spoke to me about how there was a goalie meeting that's happened, or a goalie meeting coming up. Talk about that, give our viewers the details.
Sure. Well, we every Tuesday, or sorry, every Monday, it used to be Tuesdays. We used to have goalie Tuesdays in Pilot now. The goalie Tuesdays now it's turned to goalie Monday and Tuesday because it's so many things going on. However, the good news is we had five of our nine goalies, and we have nine goalies because we have a young girl from Sophia Gagnon from northern Manitoba, who's our ninth or our third female goalie, and she doesn't play in games right now, but she's with us, so I don't want to forget her ever. So we had five of our nine goalies. One young guy, Aiden Trapp, has a bit of a concussion, probably from a slap shot in the head from some guy who blasted one off his noggin. He's following all the protocols, he tells me, so we hope he's back pretty soon. Missing in action was Tate Sanchez. I don't know where Tate is. I haven't been able to locate him.
Hmm.
He's around. I know that. They tell me he's there. He's what we call our wild thing. He doesn't. So excuse me. He's busy, and so we kind of we just keep an eye on Tate. I'm trying to keep him inside inside the fold, inside the envelope somehow. But the other four were there, and we had a great session. Actually, it was great. We went over some curious goals. We call them curious or weird. Other people will call them bad. We can't, we had these kind of goals scored out. So we went over, I guess we went over five different ways of scoring not pleasant goals, not, goals that normally don't go in that we
Right.
stop all the time. So we went over those in detail, and boy, that certainly. And we had great comment from the goalies. And Colin's there, and he's kind of giving his thoughts, and I'm giving my thoughts, and the goalies are trying to. We're asking the kid that had the problem or gave up the goal. We've got them on the spot almost, but they know exactly what goes on, and they take the blame for it every time. If it's their fault, they know it. They don't know why sometimes. So good
Right.
on us to have video. We have this great video thing that the Academy provides us. It's a few $1,000s per person, or I don't know what it is, a lot of money, but we got it and we use it, and it's really good. And we get to see the plays and where the puck goes and what happens, so we can challenge the goalies. We can see what the forwards are doing, what the D are doing or not doing, and the D are doing a lot of not. Sometimes I got to do more, but anyway, it's our problem. But yeah, it really works itself out, and so we came to some conclusions. We looked at some poke checking opportunities that we have. It's really neat to do that. So yeah, it was a good session last night. 45 minutes of goalie talk, and boy, goalies, we are different people, I'll tell you. And thank the big guy for having goalies. Otherwise, everything would be too easy.
Everything would be too normal, Gordy. I mean,
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, you guys aren't normal. We know that.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I like that. I like that playful banter. But yeah, I mean, speaking of Tate, right? Like you called him a bit of a wild thing. What's that like from a coaching perspective? Knowing that Tate's a gamer, he's going to bring his best in terms of effort when he plays, but managing him compared to the rest, a player like that, kind of suiting your coaching ability to fit that need.
Well, that's where he plays the way we used to play. So he's kind of like, whoa, that go crazy, Tate. But you know, this is a great question, to be honest with you. And I've thought about this an awful lot over the first few months here, and certainly managing someone who's really different within different people is different. And it's kind of kid gloves a little bit with him. It is with everybody. You just got to be human about it. You can't be. There's no
Yeah,
disappointment. There's discussion. For me and him, we've had one discussion lately on just calming his brain or his mind or his head during all the flurry of activity that goes on. He calls himself the wild thing, and he flies around the net, and he's a great skater, and he can stop pucks that no one else could stop. But then he gets himself out of position on some plays that where the other kids are just right there. And so why, we talk about two different worlds. When my world was busy, and Kate Tate's is busy, and everybody else is quiet. They want to be quiet. They'll just want to do enough movement to get them in the right place to make the sound. Whew. So getting a guy to calm down versus getting someone to ramp up. The quiet kids sometimes are too quiet. They don't get it. They don't get the urgency on a play. So their sense of urgency isn't an ambulance with the lights going. Their sense of urgency is, well, we'll get over there and get it. We'll get to the spot. And no, 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 you got to go quicker. Kate goes way too fast sometimes. He goes right by the accident and has to come back. So it is different, a whole other mindset. And he is a challenge, and it's a fun challenge because, again, I come from that world, and he's a pretty good goalie. So we get him sort of centered a little bit more. He is going to be one heck of a guy to beat when he gets it all figured out.
yeah, for sure. It's all about that process, right? And
Yep.
finding ways that work for Tate that may be different compared to other goaltenders in this academy. Is like we talked about many times and just previously, goaltenders are different, and everyone's seemingly unique in their own way. Gordy,
Mhm.
we're going to go to a quick little break here, and we'll be back to talk about the U15s and more squads here that were in action from the past weekend of play in the CSSHL here on the Buffaloes podcast with myself, Graham the G Show Forsyth, and current guest Gordy Thomason. Welcome back to this edition of the Buffaloes podcast with Gordy Tomlinson and myself, Graham Forsyth. Gordy, we're going to talk about the U15s to start things off. An undefeated weekend for themselves going into Wilcox, Saskatchewan, and defeating the Notre Dame Hounds 4-2 and 7-4. This team now winners of their last 3 of 4 games in CSSHL action. A strong weekend previously in that tournament they played in, going all the way to the finals. Tell me about this past weekend for this U15 squad and how they keeping the good habits up, keeping this thing rolling.
Well, this is a kudos to the players, of course, always, and the coaching staff. The veteran coach, assistant coach Brad Platt, and head coach Colin Fafra from Philadelphia. I mean, these guys have done a great job of taking, all new kids pretty much. I mean, there's 3 or 4 of them that are back from last year, but basically, 12 or 14 new kids and developing a pretty nice team. And finding the level of play that each player's got and being able to put them in the right places. It's a jigsaw puzzle that's always being challenged, but in its adjustments all the time. But at the end of the day, their better player, their best players are being their best players. The Maddox Ramages, the Cole Landervilles with 6 points on Sunday. Gavin Hildebrand in goal, backstopping this thing for in the second year. And those kind of guys are just playing great. And some of the new kids, Brett Boers, who we're going to have on the show soon, I think one day. And those guys, they're just really playing good. In fact, they got a guy that's coming on the show again, maybe next week, is Doyle, Caden Doyle from New York, and he's a forward. He's playing defense. He's been playing defense all year. We needed a guy, and he volunteered to go back there, and he's become a pretty good defenseman. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. And I think they know that because if you're a good defenseman, there's teams everywhere in the world that want defensemen. The forwards, there's like a lot of forwards, but defensemen, there's lots. So anyway, the coaches have managed to kind of move things around that jigsaw puzzle and come up with a pretty good solid lineup. We played in that tournament 2 weekends ago. We beat the AAA team from Notre Dame 14-2.
Yeah.
Now we're coming home to play the AAA or play the academy team, which is the senior team there, the U15s, and we beat them quite handily twice. And that's pretty neat to not only beat the AAA team because that's a step in the right direction. Usually, it was a big step this year because our team's pretty darn good. And then to beat and both goalies said they were concerned about this past weekend. It's going to be a tough weekend, blah blah blah. And then the weather wasn't very good, and the travel was longer than they thought,
Sure.
etc. So lots of things kind of on their minds, but these guys are all starting to focus on what the job is when they get there. And they won 2 games pretty handily. And I say good on the coaches and the players for getting it right. By it's only been a couple of months together, 3 months together, so good for them.
Yeah, and the squad now improving to 7-8. Also a shootout loss in there, so 7-8-1 this season in ninth place. And Gordy, I mean, these teams have always seen, some good talent throughout, right? Like you talk about Carson Carrolls, who has gone through that program, Benson Hurst as well. Now we look at players like Cole Landerville, that is here in his second year with this U15 squad, Maddox Ramage. And overall, you spoke about it, a really good team that's been put together that's currently ninth place, probably one of their best rankings ever at the U15 level so far in the program's history. So credit, Colin Fafra and this coaching staff, and rightfully so. Do you feel like it's his culture that he's brought, maybe it's just the mix of players, or is it everything just clicking right now for this U15 squad?
Typically, it's everything. I mean, everything has to fall into place. However, now that Colin's got a year of experience, he's got a veteran guy who came back to coaching with us, and Brad Platt. So he's got a guy that's got some stability. Brad's in his 50s, and so he brings that stability, whereas Colin's a younger guy in his early 30s. And so there's a, sort of piss and vinegar guy and a guy with a little bit more feet on the ground. And Colin, of course, is a goalie guy as well, so he has a different perspective on things than most coaches would have. And of course, our goalies benefit from having him there as well. But they've done a great job. Well, they did a great job, or Colin at least, and our scouts and our scouting system and program. We got a few extra good players. We're thrilled to have Maddox come back and Gavin come back and Cole, of course, to come back. They're the catalysts for all of this. They make this all happen. And there's a few other guys and the new kids have to figure out how to pick up their game and match what those three guys can do. And then, of course, those three guys match what the best players in the league can do. So it all sort of fits. And they drive the boat, those three players drive the boat. I mean, as much as the coaches do, the kids follow the kids, right? And they follow their leaders in the room, which is the way hockey works. It's the way sports works. It's supposed to work that way. If you've got good leadership, and we do in those three guys, then we're going to have a good team. So all in all, it's all those things, and they're really working hard on their skills and their timing and all those things. So again, kudos to the players for figuring it out, and the coaches for giving them the right stuff and getting them to move forward. And we do have a tough weekend coming up. I mean, we've got OHA and we got Nax and those guys, and it's not going to be pretty and at times, but that's okay. We're going to face them, we're going to challenge them, and we're going to get better and catch them after the new year as well.
Yeah, and Cole Landerville, 55 total points in 26 games played so far. Like you mentioned, 6 points in that 7-4 win this past Sunday against Notre Dame. But as you mentioned, Gordy, going up against a tough team coming up this weekend twice in OHA. Edmonton, a bit of a step up compared to Notre Dame. This is a team that's 11-7 heading into this matchup. A real, opportunity for this Buffaloes team to prove themselves against one of the top teams in the league.
Well, they might beat one. They might get a win out of this, and hopefully they do. I mean, they certainly are capable of beating a team that's just slightly ahead of them. That's certainly in the works and a possibility. We always say if you get great goaltending and timely scoring, bingo, and everybody else does their job, you win the hockey game, or at least you're right there. So that's the plan is to stay with them all the way through the game and try and beat them by one or more. So and our guys are starting to get the confidence to do that. That's a big thing with everybody in sport. Doesn't matter what sport you're in. You talk to pros in any sport, and in particular, that well, it doesn't matter what sport. And then they talk about confidence and being good at what you do and being prepared and all that stuff. Well, right now we're in a pretty good space, pretty good spot on the confidence side, and the kids are certainly prepared. So we're going to give it a good shot, see where we are, when we finish the weekend, and then continue to grow from there.
These games also going to be played at Blackjack Stewart Arena. So coming up, Buffaloes fans, get out, support your squad Friday night and on Saturday morning against OHA Edmonton U15 prep for the U17s. Gordy, they played in some action this past weekend, coming away with a win, but also 2 losses. Overall, though, seemingly 3 games, all of them, where they were close and this team was in it in the losses. Take me through the U17's past weekend of play.
Yeah, winning 2 losses out there and playing against the teams they played against, no shame there, and close. And so our team is learning to uh, play better, even get down in the score a little bit and come back, stick with the other team, don't get down. The kids are so sort of high and low sometimes. It's getting them to be high or at least at the high end of things all the time. Don't give up. Keep trying hard. I know we don't work hard on the goalies on this because goalies are born to do that. That's who we are. You don't like being scored on, so you battle like a crazy person until the game ends, and you hope you kept the score under 10 or 5 or whatever the magic number is for that game. You want to win, so you work hard. Yeah, it's embarrassing sometimes, but you work hard. We don't let them off the hook, by the way. It's sometimes some people think that goalie coaches may be a little too easy, a little bit. We just don't talk hard. We don't need to talk hard to goalies. we showed five bad goals on last night. Those five goalies were sick that those goals went in. They don't want them to go in.
Yeah.
They don't need to be showing those things very often. Once in a while, it's good to kind of keep them from getting ahead of themselves. But so being tough on them isn't. The rest of the team sometimes needs to be scolded once in a while because, and they have been, and they've reacted properly. So the U17s, full marks for their weekend. They had a heck of a. I mean, they left on Tuesday morning to beat the snow. They ran right into the snow. I don't know. It took them like 6 days to get to Penticton, and then they had to play the games, and then had to come back. They got back last night, after 2 days, 2 full days of travel at 7 o'clock at night. So they spent a gazillion hours on the bus, and not fun hours. Those are treacherous hours in some cases. Bus going pretty slow. You're going through mountains. My gosh. Um, but we do have a safety protocol for folks out there. We do have all sorts of safety protocols for everything that we do. And so they got there and back safely and did well in their games.
And I think that may be the biggest one of this whole weekend, Gordy, right? With how, you know how bad the roads can get here. We've actually had roads shut down in the past when I was working for another company that came down to do games with Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, where we simply couldn't get down there because the roads were unsafe. So happy that everyone got back safe and got there safe. And this team able to play in three competitive games. They take on South Alberta Hockey Academy coming up on December 1st this weekend, Gordy. I believe, I'm not sure off the top of my head which day that's going to be, but a team that, brings talent, a team that's going to be coming down to Pilot Mountain to face off against them. What's the expectation in that game coming up?
Yeah, Saha is coming in here. They're playing some games in Winnipeg, and they'll come out and get us on the road going home. Gets them 2 hours ahead of themselves getting home on a Sunday morning. It's Sunday morning, by the way. So
Right.
is that game. So yeah, it'll be a great game. Playing in our building, our kids will be well rested by then, and eager to play in that particular game. So we expect it to be a good one. Saha is a good organization. They got good teams, and another opportunity for us to check ourselves against the good competition in this league. And boy, if we don't mention that again, we'll mention it many, many, many times. It's all about there's a whole whack of good that's done here in the CSSHL, from the school, from the community stuff that we do, but the competition and the recognition that people have on stream, on Hockey TV or Live Barn or whatever we're on, is great, and this puts the kids in front of the people who are going to select them in the future for their future teams. And so, it's great stuff, and this is why hockey's gone that route, and it's a really good thing for the kids that are in it, for sure. And we're looking forward to the game as another check mark.
Yeah, and for this U17 squad, they're going to have a chance to play 5 games coming up in the month of December, Gordy. A busy first true week of December coming up for them, as they'll be in action on December 4th, the 6th, as well as the 7th. That's about 60% of this month's games. 80% of them going to be played before their finale here on the 2024 calendar year schedule against Prairie Hockey Academy on December 14th. We're going to take another break here. Coming up, we're going to finish off with Gordy talking about the U18 programs. Welcome back here. We're going to move into talking about the U18 programs. As I mentioned before we hit the break, myself, Graham, the G Show Forsyth, joined here by Gordy Tummelson on another edition of this Buffaloes podcast. Gordy, the U18 prep buffs, not an ideal game for them. We won't mention the score here, but going up against South Alberta Hockey Academy, take me through it. This team, at least, getting 2 goals on the board.
Yeah, tough game. Saha's really good. I mean, and these kids at this age, they're kind of like the junior kids. So if you're able to kind of junior age, if you're able to grab up, and this is the advantage that the guys in Alberta seem to have against us, or at least three or four of the organizations there, is that they've managed to get a hold of the junior teams, the junior A teams, and the Western Hockey League teams, and convince them to send really good players to them. The guys that don't make their team, but should be playing in a really competitive situation. So they get them to go down and into the Edge, into OHA, into Saha, into Nax, and we haven't been able to convince our guys to do the same thing. So they come in here with basically junior hockey players or the next step junior hockey players. And we do sort of too, but not quite in the same, not the same quantity. So we're getting kids coming out of AAA that aren't quite there for junior hockey the next year. They might need another year of development. So we do suffer that, and that's a good thing for those guys in Alberta and BC that do that. We don't have that luxury yet, but we're working on it. And you can tell that when we get against the rink. The rink isn't miles ahead of us either. They're not getting the support from junior hockey that we would need to be in the same level. So that's okay. We're happy to play the games, and that's what's going to happen. So go for it, and we learn.
Right. And I mean, if you take a look at the U18 prep standings on the CSSHL's website, like all the teams outside of the Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg squad in the top 10 are either from Alberta or from BC.
Yeah.
So yeah, given that, I mean, even though Saha is ranked 10th, Gordy, the standings don't separate these top teams by much, really. They're only 10 points away from first against matching up against OHA Edmonton. But given that, knowing that they have such an advantage with the scouting, does that come down to really making that impression through the years of the U15 and U17 programs to make them convinced and make them believe out of the players you bring in that Pilot Mountain's that place to play?
Yeah, that's always a selling feature or a non-selling feature, I guess. It's a negative. But but we know that the kids who come out of our program, doesn't matter what age category, then they decide to go somewhere else, they're always way better. Even though they might not as a team be better, the individual players come out way better than they were when they came in. Now, that might mean a double A kid who comes in is way better. Now he's a medium triple A guy. Well, that's great. Or he's an academy first level guy. Not a superstar, but certainly a good guy. So, everybody's moving up. And that's all anybody can ask of any program is that you make my player a better player. Now, we also make them better students. We're very proud of that. We had one guy who just said, his mom sent us a testimonial saying, "Hey, my son's gone from a 60 in biology to a 90."
There you go.
Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy for putting him in that school to give him small classrooms and to get his marks up. So and that's just one guy, one subject. There's all kinds of things going on there. So and they're all good for the most part. So yeah, you got to look at it from a whole lot of different directions, not just who won the championship, because only one team does that.
Sure. It's about the student athlete at the end of the day, right? The
There you
student
go.
or athlete, of course, as they always say, and that being true in this case. But the team's going to be out of the classroom and into the rink to play a regular season matchup to finish off their November schedule tomorrow night in Winnipeg against RHA Winnipeg. Last time these two teams played, Gordy, 8-6 victory for RHA Winnipeg. About the goal again to keep this one close against this rival.
Let's beat them. Heck, we're not just going to
Beat them.
keep it close. We're going to beat them this time. Getting
Beat them.
tired of losing to them by one or two. We're just going to beat them. We're going to kick a late field goal, and that's all be. So, well, we got to get our goalies to stop a few more. I'm going to be. We mentioned that last night at our meeting. Goalies stop more. Okay, well, yeah, that's good goalie coaching, right? So there you go. We'll see what we can do. We're going to keep it close. It's going to be another good close game, and we're going to try and win this one.
I really like that mentality. This team, knowing they have the pieces to, go out and compete, so why not prove it? Making a statement, attempting to tonight, as this podcast airs on this Wednesday. This game being played Wednesday night at RHA Winnipeg. Two rivals going at it for Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's U18 female prep buffs. Gordy, they had 3 games played this past weekend. 3 games in a 5-month schedule where it was their second game of the month. only played for that time due to this team, of course, playing in different tournaments and games outside of league play. But there was some success for the Buffaloes. They came away with a 6-0 win over St. Mary's High School. Also losing a close one to end off the weekend. First one not going as well on the scoreboard, but yeah, assessment from the past weekend from this U18 prep female buff squad.
Yeah, basically we split one win, one loss, and an overtime loss. So it's a tie game, and they play the 5 minute overtime thing. So that's good. We're disappointed in the. I think our first game we were disappointed defensively and goaltending wise. We weren't as sharp as we needed to be for whatever reason. And one of those ugly goals that we talked about at the beginning of the show happened in that game, and sometimes the mood of the game changes when a bad goal goes in or a weird goal goes in, and so things happen. But at the end of the day, we're not going to play great all the time. I think the team came out a bit
Yeah.
flat. They traveled to Calgary in the snow. It may have affected some of their travel plans, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that. But at the end of the day, they're going to go on the ice and play the games, and they didn't do as well as they could have. Second game, we really played well. We got solid goaltending. The kids came back and got their game back, their 1-2-2 defensive style hockey. They got it back together. Slipped a little bit on Sunday, but overall, playing in the games they played, a three-game split is not a bad thing at all for that team, and things only look better all the time for them as we move forward.
Yeah, and like you said, right, not every game is gonna come out with this squad victorious, but really we've been talking about this team's process for a while, and Kurt Fortney, focusing on only up in that process as the season goes along from the conversation I had with him last week, Gordy. But for this squad, they'll have one last game on the schedule coming up against Balmoral Hall, a team that, middle of the pack more so in the standings, but a team that, brings some prestige with that name, Balmoral Hall, right? Given how successful they've been outside of this league in their past play. This one, a chance for this U18 female prep Buffaloes team to make a statement, potentially playing at home as well.
Yeah, we play at home against Balmoral Hall on Friday, and then Sunday at the rink in Winnipeg. So that's going to be fun. But having Balmoral Hall in the CSSHL West is a bonus. They used to be in the East they'd been there for a long time, or whatever league they were in out East. Now they're with us. Makes more sense, obviously, for us, and we're happy to have them in the league so that we can play back and forth and closer games, et cetera, et cetera. For our girls, this is our first game against these folks, so we're going to enjoy this one. Hopefully, we can show them how some hospitality and just beat them by one. That would be nice hospitality, wouldn't it? But we're looking forward to the game, and yeah, I mean, it's a storied franchise in girls hockey forever. In Manitoba, so yeah, having Balmoral Hall is good. And then we play the rink on Sunday, and we know the games against the rink are back and forth and back, and sometimes we win, sometimes they win. And the girls are getting to know each other by first name pretty soon, because we do play a number of games against them because of their closeness, and so that's a good thing too. And yeah, we're gonna have some fun. And girls again being able to challenge themselves and see where they fit amongst the other teams in the league.
Yeah, and I guess we'll end off with this question, actually, Gordy. Given these two teams, RHA Winnipeg and Balmoral Hall, they're ranking in the goals for categories. Balmoral Hall ranking third, and Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg ranking sixth. Given that this Buffaloes team has been working towards playing and perfecting their defensive strategy, this a huge test in that regard, isn't it? Going up against elite competition in that regard in terms of putting the puck in the back of that in this league.
Yeah, I mean, we're not a juggernaut. Those two other teams are closer to being juggernauts in terms of scoring goals. Defensively, kids are kids; they forget. So we're practicing defensive a lot because we don't have a lot of scores. We are getting some great secondary and third dairy and standard dairy or whatever kind of dairy, goal scoring and point getting from our players because of the system we're playing, the 1-2-2 kind of a thing. The other team, and so the hope is that you frustrate the heck out of the other guy and you go down and pop one in, and you keep their big goal scorers off the board for the most part. and you squeak out a 1 goal win, or you're close anyway. And so the games are always close. That's a good thing. And they're learning, they're getting better at their skills. So all those things are happening. And again, we're not fortunate to have a lot of great point getters, but we're developing some point getters, and we're going to try and put our finger on all those other ones on the other two teams that score points and say, and our goalies, of course, they've been our juggernaut all year long. Those two girls, Rain Hall and Sutter Reeves, have been as steady as rocks in goal, and we certainly expect that again on the weekend. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, goaltending always a storyline regarding this U18 female prep buffs team, as well as really all the rest of the teams in this academy. And yeah, Shay Siemens as well as Ashlyn Cuffler among the top two goal leaders on this Buffaloes team in total games played. They'll be looking to have big weekends offensively, as well as the rest of this team looking to continue to perfect their defensive strategy. Gordy's going to be joining me next week to talk.
Before you go,
Yep.
before we go, Graham, got to tell you one thing. Got a neat text from Brooklyn Adams, goalie for us for 2 years. The pastor, she's in Prince Edward Island playing out there, and she went to a game with the Mount Royal Mounties. Mount Allison Mounties, sorry, Mount Allison Mounties, and playing goal was a girl that I talk about all the time. And Brooklyn said, I just watched your favorite goalie in the world, Hannah Pagdato, play goal, and she's really good. And so, yeah, she is really good, and et cetera, et cetera. But there's two of my kids, my girl kids, out there that are watching one another. So thanks for mentioning that.
Gordy Tummelson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast to talk about all the teams in the academy that were in action, all four of them. From the past week/weekend of play, we'll be showing you the schedule to end off this episode near the end of it here, as we're going to be wrapping things up shortly with just some news from around the academy, showing you some big plays that were also made from a few players from this past weekend or one in particular, sorry, from a goaltender in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, and more here on the Buffaloes podcast on G Show Productions on gshow.ca, brought to you by Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, as well as Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. More to come after this transition. Welcome back to this edition of the Buffaloes podcast here on G Show Productions. Shout out to Matt Beardy for tuning in. Guy that's been doing some great editing for us here as of late. You can check out some of his edits now actually on our Instagram. We're going to be posting some of them on YouTube, mostly all of them on YouTube, as it's been cutting some highlights for us, which is great. But it's great to see also, teams in the academy, one team in particular, or two teams in particular, you got a chance to go out to check out some NHL action 2 days ago, as per Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's Twitter PM Buffaloes. On X, that is, the U17 male preps that ended up attending Penticton V's game. And yeah, the U18 female Buffaloes ended up watching the Calgary Flames games. So that was courtesy of the Scoville family, Addison Scoville's parents, hooking it up. And yeah, as for the U17 prep Buffaloes, they attended a Penticton V's game. So not on professional level, but still pretty high quality level of hockey that they got to take in this past weekend in the MF in their time off. In terms of some other news from around the academy, in terms of a player that ended up having a big game, 6-point game for Cole Landerville in the Buffaloes 7-4 win against the Notre Dame Hounds over the weekend. Gordy mentioned this. We're mentioning again, of course. Cole over 50 points already this season in total games played, only adding to his CSSHL point totals with that big 6-point outing this past Sunday for the Buffaloes. As for A player that ended up making some noise ended up being U17 goaltender Matthew Palmer, who ends up not only making it on the CSSHL social media page, them posting his big save, but him also finishing second in Week 5's top 10 plays of the week in the CSSHL. Take a look. And Matthew Palmer absolutely coming across to rob his opponent on that chance. Like I said, he ends up finishing second in the top 10 plays of the week in the CSSHL, as I should say. And yeah, congratulations to Matthew Palmer on not only that big save, but having some success down in Pilot Mound so far this year. It's not all about hockey, though, for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. It's also about focusing up in the classroom. As we mentioned earlier on, they're not just athletes, they're student athletes. Student always come before the athlete, and just great to see all of the players in this video hard at work and into their studies, dedicated to that. And there we have it, a fun little montage provided by the folks down at Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. Andre doing some good work there, camera operator there. I think video director, I'm not sure what the term is exactly for him, but some nice work that him and his team put together down there in Pilot Mound. As for the upcoming schedule for this week in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy for their teams. Their U15 staying home Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week. They'll have a triple header going up against some pretty good squads. OHA Edmonton twice. And then next, Northern Alberta Extreme. First game, 8 p.m. on Friday. Final game of the weekend, 9 a.m. And the first December game of the season for this male U15 prep team on Sunday. As for the male U17 prep Buffaloes, they'll be in action on December 1st on Sunday, 11:30 a.m. to take on the South Alberta Hockey Academy at Blackjack Stewart Arena. Those games can be seen on Flow Sports. As for the Buffaloes against Rink Hockey Academy, that game actually being played earlier today, as we'll take a look at the CSSHL's website right now to take a look at the score, because I don't believe Pilot Mound has posted it as of yet. As we try to get to it here. Pilot Mound, where would they be? And for this game, not the best result for this U18 team on the scoreboard. 12-3 loss against RHA Winnipeg. Back-to-back games where this team has given up 12 goals each. But November's over at this point. Time to turn the page anew for the next month to play for this U18 squad, as they'll be back in action to take on Sawhaw South Alberta Hockey Academy at Big Marble Ghost Center. I believe that's going to be played in Alberta. On Monday, December 9th. They'll actually be playing a triple header on December, which we'll be talking about in upcoming episodes on December 9th, December 10th, and December 11th to finish off their CSSHL 2024 portion of the schedule and league games there. As for the U18 female prep Buffaloes, they'll be taking on Balmoral Hall at home this Friday, 8:15 p.m. Central Time. A storied team with the history that Balmoral has. And then finishing off their weekend in Winnipeg, playing their first December game of the year at 1 p.m. at the Rink Hockey Training Center. Games are going to be played in PM as well as Oak Bluff, Manitoba. All games can be seen on Flow Sports, the official partner of CSSHL. This season for another year. For a while there, I actually thought that the CSSHL was not going to have a broadcast partner officially this year, as it took a while for games to get going. I think they took a bit more time to set up than usual, but yeah, that's the place to watch all these games. The official partner, or the broadcasting partner of the CSSHL, and Flow Hockey, formerly Hockey TV. But yeah, as for us here, we're gonna be throwing it to our Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia commercial, and coming back with some final words on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. G Show Productions on gshow.ca for episode 11, season 2. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Well, you made it to another end of the Buffaloes podcast, another edition of the end of this one for episode 11, season 2 on G Show Productions. I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Special thanks, as always, to Gordy Tummelson for coming on and joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. I'm going to be joined by some U15 players for next week's edition of the show, maybe even one of their coaches and Colin Fafara, but we'll have the official guest list for next episode released by either Wednesday morning or the day before on Tuesday is when you guys will be able to see who's officially on as the guest for that one. And yeah, be sure to check out the updates to that guest list if it happens to change on our website at gshow.ca, as well as on our social media pages too. Special thanks to our sponsors in Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for sponsoring another edition of the Buffaloes podcast, as well as you, the viewer, for tuning into this one. Happy to have you here tuning into our network. Your home for hockey here in Manitoba for 2024-2025, and your home for all things Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy Buffaloes hockey. Like I said, next episode comes out next Wednesday. So until then, folks, enjoy your weekend ahead. Stay safe out there. If it's snowing where you're at, which I'm sure if you're watching this podcast, it probably is, or maybe you're somewhere that's a bit warmer, that's a bit sunnier, and not getting colder and colder by the day. But no matter where you are, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you 7 days from now for another edition of the Buffaloes podcast, coming to you a bit earlier than this episode here tonight. I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth, giving you the salute, peacing out, and saying so long, everybody. Until next week, we'll see you then for another edition of the Buffaloes podcast for episode 12, season 2. Until then, we're going to have Tyson Unruh take us away, Juno Award winner, with his March of the Buffaloes theme. So long, everybody.